First, how successful was one identity? The success here is what we will talk about if we compare the feature set of the old web designer portal to the feature set of the new HTML5 based portal. The goal was to get feature parity between both tools in version 9.2, and I like to say, we was nearly 100% successful. There are just 3 different features left which are not ported yet. The first one is in the administration mode of the web portal, the assignment of machines to ADS groups. This is something that is not ported yet. I think not really hard and will not be missed by a lot of people. The other both are, from my perspective, more important. On the one hand side, web components for the Epic module are not ported, and the web components for the data governance module are not supported. The developers was not able to make it by time, so that 9.2 was released without these both modules. They will be released in the next version. The web components, from my perspective, is the bigger piece of cake. I think the ADS machines and ADS group, it's an admin task. That is something people can as well do in the manager if necessary. However, every other stuff that was in the web designer portal is now as well somehow in the Angular portal located. With that, there is no reason any longer, beside data governance and Epic, just to use web designer portals. For sure, with the next version of the Identity Manager, these missing components will exist then as well in the Angular portal. Don't forget, please, that a lot of additional features in the meantime developed was from the begin on only located in the Angular-based portal, which means that feature parity in this case means everything from Web Designer is moved to Angular, plus there is a lot of new functionality only in Angular available. Now let's talk about new features implemented into the standard web. First, we talk about the compare of identities and their assignments. This is nothing specific new in, I guess, 8.2 or so. There was a report implemented which allows to select identities and then to have a look from in a matrix way. Where are differences looking at account definitions, resources, roles, subscribable reports, system entitlement, system roles, and so on. The idea behind that report was quite clear. If I have 2 or 3 people doing the same, it is always a good idea to figure out if there are, from a permission and resource perspective, differences between these people. And to be sure, the report was created and it was able to run that report in the manager. Now, the report moved to the web. You can see that on the right-hand side. You can again do exactly the same. You can select several identities, then the report will do its work, and you see on the matrix on the right-hand side the differences between different people. For example, as you can see it on the right-hand side, the column in green says everything the same, and the column in red says a lot of differences, and in orange a moderate amount of differences. Another new feature is a responsibility of direct reports. This is a new feature. It is of course important to know if there are responsible people for employees available, especially if these people are shortly in front or have just left the company. Therefore, that specific report here helps a lot in a way of that you can set a filter. That filter will just filter all the people short in front of leaving the company or have left the company shortly before. And if you see then these people, you can as well see if there are often people available. That means people without owners. And that will then at the end help you to make decisions and to ensure later on for these people permissions will be correctly disabled. Role recommendations, something which is as well quite of interest. That That is something for role managers or role owners. Typically, we all know in the world of identity and access governance, permissions should better be assigned per roles instead of direct assigned to accounts. And because of that, it could be helpful if I have a role with a set of people as a role manager to know, for example, all the members of the role or the majority of the members of that specific role does have one specific permission directly assigned. If that happened, then it is a good idea, for example, to take that direct assignment away from the people and put it to the role so that the people get at the end the permission role-based assigned. The opposite is as well of interest. So for example, if people get a specific permission per role and the system can tell me, for example, looking at the usage of stuff, that the majority of people it's not using that permission or that application, then it is a good idea from a recommendation perspective to get recommended to remove that very specific resource from the role so that the only person that is using that and its member of the role will get it, for example, directly assigned. Another very interesting feature newly implemented is the team role behavior. So it is possible now that managers can for their team just request a team role. What will happen? A business role will get created and could then be configured so that the team gets the resources role-based in difference to something other else. The good message there is that people, depending on their team, will get added to the team role and removed to the team role automatically. Request properties was as well updated again. Request properties or properties can be added to specific items being requested, where you have to enter specific information to, for example, screen size of a monitor you want to order or whatever. However, these request properties does have in the meantime two more features. One feature is that the description can be displayed in the web portal. So these request properties can have a description. This description is now displayed with the help of this wonderful blue eye you can see on the right-hand side in the picture. The second feature we are talking about are dynamic changes of request properties. That means there is scripting now available to better support that. What is meant there? Sometimes in these request properties, it is a good idea to be able to show different values depending on a specific type of object. So for example, if I take an on-prem Active Directory, I need some other properties for a group than, for example, if I take an Entra ID and its groups. However, the use of these scripts, who will then generate different values or such, are now better supported. Absolutely new, and from my perspective a small sensation, is the product selection form. Years ago, OneIdentity started just to build new forms to find products to request. And there's a big discussion and a long debate going on here among the different technical experts just to talk what is the best way to find products. There is one group of people saying search is the best way. The other group says categories are the best way. There is a lot of meaning in between. What I like to say here is, with 9.2 of the Identity Manager, the UX team did a wonderful job together with the R&D folks to create a complete new Find My Resource request form. You can see it on the right-hand side. Everything is in there. You will find, of course, the way to use the categories to find products and filter the products. You can as well, if the category view distracts you, you can just hide the categories and just use only the search. There are now tabs available which allow you as well to find products depending on the peer group analysis or whatever else you like to. At the end, there are now many ways to find the right product for a request. The whole thing is so flexible. I think that everybody will now be able to find the right resources, and personally I think that customers would like it. Product bundles is something that exists since a while. Yeah, these things was request templates in the past. Remember our rename form. But the product bundles at the end allows you just to bundle products in a group so that somebody needs not to pick together all the resources he needs. He can just get one of the bundles and take all. There was a redesign as well. You can see it on the right-hand side again, in a way of that you can now select your bundle and then pick the one or the other item from the bundle or untick it, depending on what you like to do. Another feature together with the product bundles is that product bundles was a little bit hard to configure for people who was creating product bundles for their folks. That was always only possible by assigning the bundle to the shopping cart and then to do something in the shopping cart. That is gone as well. Product bundles now can freely and easily just edited and configured from the owners. Last but not least, the product bundles itself just supports now the new request parameters. So you can define for a product bundle parameters, which then will allow to set bundle specific parameters. As we all know, Identity Manager does have a request history, and new here is that the request history in the meantime as well just store archived requests. And of course displays them. That means if you have a request history, which is years old, if you do have a history database that moves out that data to the specific history database, now the web front automatically, if history databases are available, will show as well the complete request history for a specific requester. Another feature from my perspective, one of the more important ones, are custom filters. Remember, one of the biggest problems we had with our standard web front until now was that a lot of searching and filtering capabilities was not available. The new custom filter feature is something which is in many places to use in the standard web portal. It allows you very easily to create specific filters for your own use. And the best feature ever here is that the default filter that is set by one identity can be just overruled by a custom filter created by someone, and the front end could be able to remember that. That means, in difference to the standard, from the portal, you can define your own custom filter for a specific list, and that custom filter can be set as the default. And then for that user only, this will be the default. Of course, filter can be turned on and turned off so that you can see everything, but the good message is you can now define your own filters and can set them as your private default. Have a look at view functionality. Of course, we are at the filters again. Again, one of the discussions was all the time there are not enough filters and sorts and whatever else available for the new lists in the new standard web portal. I think that is now as well completely solved. As you easily can see here in the picture on the right hand side, there are now everything available. You can sort your data, you can filter your data. That was what you saw on the first thing. You can now export your data like before as a CSV file, for example. And you can save your specific views you have defined so that you can toggle between them. Another feature, again back in the standard web portal, are statistics and KPIs. Statistics and KPIs always helps managers to get a feeling for their data situation. These statistics and KPIs was not available in the new standard web portal since it exists. Now they are back, and as you can easily see on the right hand side, these KPIs and statistics are looking very well formatted, so UX did another very good job just to bring that feature back. Of course, it is possible to select your specific KPIs together so that your page then shows your default, which is always helpful. And another very nice feature is the enhancements of resolving of rule violations. What's meant there? In the very past, if rule violations happened, it was possible to solve them. CISOs signed in and decided to grant an exception or to remove specific permissions or something else. This action of the CISOs was then documented in the Identity Manager, but it was not really clear what happens there or with which reason. And this is now solved as well in a way of that now CISOs or people who will solve rule violations can just define messages which explain why they did something. For example, unsubscribe something or something like that. If the people are not doing that, there is a fallback feature behind, which is the default reason feature, which allows then that the system will just add the default reason to their decisions. At the end, the whole thing leads then to a more extended request history. That means in the history, you can see that on the right-hand side, you will see all of these messages which will inform why a decision was taken in which way, depending on a rule violation. Another very nice feature as well on rule violations are now the feature to assign mitigation controls to a rule violation. For example, as a CISO, if I grant an exception, it typically always just increases the risk of a specific person. If I get something exceptionally, which typically is not allowed, this will increase the risk. To mitigate the risk, we have mitigation controls available since ever, but the good message is now, if I do such decisions, if I approve for a rule violation or something else, I can as well in the same way assign mitigation controls, for example, another training or an attestation or whatever, so that the risk gets mitigated after it was increased. And of course, the third time I mentioned the UX team did a great job, and this is with the attestation overview form. As you can see, the attestation overview form has a complete new look and feel as well. After years of talking about same colored graphs everywhere, we are now back to some colored graphs, very clearly outline problems or show specific status information to the users. And one of the first lists where you can see all of that wonderful new stuff is the new attestation overview form, where you can do your attestation decisions. And as you can easily see there, that is the left-hand side of the picture. Highlighted are now policy violations and rule violations, and of course status information like an overdue or new and something like that. And now in case of attestation details, we run an attestation, there is an attestation case, and now it is possible just on the attestation case to see as well policy violations. This was not possible before. Now you can see them directly. And if there are mitigation controls assigned for that specific policy violations, they are shown as well. And if we just keep looking at the risk of attestation details, you can as well see that the risk assessment now is really possible on these attestation details. In the past, there was more or less only the risk information about how many percentages of risk exists, but now you can easily see the complete calculation that shows you exactly where the risk came from. Last but not least, for attestations exists now as well, like for the request of resources, to the possibility to display terms of use, where people can read general information and might agree to. Like for the requests, in the meantime, as well for the attestation, exists something like recommendations for approval or a denial. What is behind there? There are different ways to figure out if from a data perspective, you can get recommendations as a decision makers what's to decide. There are calculation methods like the functional area analysis, the peer group analysis, the risk analysis, etc. You can see them on the right-hand side. And if you use one of these calculations to a specific approval, then from these calculations, you can get at the end something like a recommendation. If you look at the right side, for example, from 5 calculation methods, 3 came back in green, 2 are not valid or came back with more worse values. That means 3 from 5 are green. Maybe a good idea to say that could be approved. However, this calculations exists since a while for requests and their approvals. Now this calculation stuff exists as well for the attestation and their approvals. Help desk tickets are back. We have help desk tickets since a while in the Identity Manager. Originally, it was implemented just to automate processes where the Identity Manager is not able to get connected to specific target systems because, for example, there was no API to make it happen. However, these tickets exist since a while and now they are back in the standard Angular web front. They can now be seen and created from any user. Of course, that feature will not replace a big ticket system, what is company-wide used, but for administrative tickets or for small ticketing in a smaller company, they are quite great. And of course, as you easily can see, another feature newly implemented for these tickets is that now attachments like emails or screenshots or whatever else stuff could be assigned as well to these different tickets. Another very nice feature in the new standard portal, I like to say heavily improved, is the context-sensitive documentation. This is what is behind these blue eye icons pretty often. And what's new there is that depending on the way how it is shown, you can now as well add links to that documentation, which allows then not only to put everything into one big box, it is now possible just to link different topics of the documentation so that people get a much better overview of the content. Last but not least here, a minor enhancements. This is a very nice enhancement, by the way. Each web front end works like always. You have to sign in somewhere, and during the process signing in, I like to say your permission token gets built. The permission token then later on says I'm in the role of XYZ, and because of that I can see in my web front and can do with my web front the following things. If the permission situation changes, I have to relog in. It's more or less like in Windows. The main problem there is that people don't know about it. For example, I'm requesting for more permissions in my web portal. I want to get a team manager, for example. I get a team manager, for example, but I opened my web portal in the morning, and because of that, I'm not seeing that I'm a team manager. However, on the next morning, when I relog into my portal, I will see all the features. To make that a little bit easier to understand, now exists that message that says, hey, your role situation has changed underneath, and it could be a good idea to relog into your web portal now to get your new features available immediately. However, it is like a browser message that needs to be at the end activated, and then the front end will let you know relogin might make sense. One of the additional features, not, I like to say, standardly available, it's a technical preview. And that technical preview is the new approval workflow editor in the web portal. Currently, approval workflows can only be created in the manager of the Identity Manager. There is a graphical editor allow you to create these approval workflows for attestations or for requests. But there is a new small package as well for the portal available, for the web portal. That is what you can see there in the Node Portal Preview Workflow Editor. And if that feature gets activated, then you will get the technical preview of such a workflow editor. Nothing really for the productive use. It is just the first try to implement something like that. It will then be a feature with one of the next version. And now we are at the layout of our standard web portal. There a lot of things was done as well. And the main important thing is that we have implemented a theming there. A theming means you can now define specific themes for your standard portal. And depending on these themes, you will then get another color situation or something else. We as well ship some themes out of the box. My famous theme, for example, is the dark theme. I always love the dark themes. And because of that, you see here is a dark theme available as well. Additionally, you will find the default, which is our light theme. A high contrast theme option exists as well. And more important is you can now develop your own theme just as a web developer, as an Angular web developer. And that is then, for example, your customer theme if you like to implement something like that. Users can just select and set their themes as preferred themes, like Herwig using Thark theme, for example, but admins can as well assign a default theme if necessary. Now let's talk about the feature administration portal. The feature administration portal is, I like to say, the admin portal for the web front. There you can now look into logs much better than before. Yeah, in the past, if somebody was interested in web logs, the access to the server was a way to do that, to get the files from, and then to look into these specific logs. Now there is a feature in the admin portal, and in that specific admin portal feature, you can see session logs and live logs. You can as well use reg expressions to find and search for specific content. And of course, you can download the log files so that you can, I like to say, load them in your preferred text editor. Same for the operations support portal. There are new features implemented as well. In the operations support portal, first of all, you can see all the operations context specific to a specific process ID. What's meant there? Sometimes data changes initiated by one process or one person are leading to many followers in different ways. That means the data modification you did are triggering other data modifications, they are triggering some data modifications, and they are triggering some data modifications at the end. From a system perspective, it is not 100% clear who was doing what. You initiated something, but unfortunately the system was then initiating the next, and then the system was initiating the next, and so on. And so it is possible to follow all of these processes by just looking at a process ID, because the process ID for all of these triggered things by one thing are at the end the same. However, in the operations support portal, you are now able to filter for a specific process ID and get all the information depending on one specific origin data action. Additionally to that, you can have a look at the process history. You can also have the operations history displayed in the operations portal. And you can see the content of the DB queue if you are interested. Think about the DB queue as the calculation queue of the identity manager. People using the job queue know about it. This feature exists now as well in the operations portal. Last but not least, one thing should be clear, and this is the display of pending objects. Pending objects are objects which are just pending. They are on the way to be done. They can be displayed now as well in the operations support portal, but only if you are responsible for a specific system.